What's going on, guys? This is Mars Brigade 99 coming to you once again with another session of Dark Souls PvP. Alright guys, we're back at it again for another volume in the Battle of the Build series. Now, first and foremost, I'd like to give thanks and shout out to good old ImDaNuca. And I think that's how you pronounce it. You know, some of these guys got some of these odd names for themselves. I mean, they may know it, but anyone who reads it may be confused. Right? Exhibit A, because I definitely don't even know what that means. But be that as it may, I'd like to give a thanks and shout out for firstly volunteering, and for number 2, putting forth a good performance of his build. Now, I asked him, you know, what kind of handy dandy title did he have for his build, and he didn't really have a fancy title to it. So, you know, maybe I'll kind of think of something sometime in the future, but basically it is a Faith Claw / Notched Whip build. Right, and the reason why I say Faith is basically, well, actually I won't even say Faith. It's basically a Sunlight Claw / Notch Whipped build. Right now, this is not him, but you know, his invasion was so close to our bout that I just figured that I would go ahead and include it. Now, in most cases, you know, whenever I'm kind of featuring one person in particular, I try not to do this, but because he was already right there, I said, you know what, I'll just go ahead and add the footage. Alright, and then we'll go ahead and continue on with what we're doing. Alright, so this is, I think his name is Phantom Build. Shout out to him. We had a few good matches the other day on the time of this recording, and you know, some good matches. Definitely good players. I'd like to give a shout out for him and GG's for those matches. Alright, so he's fired up with the red tear stone, but see, he's about to make the mistake. Right? He think he's going to catch me, but nope. No, sir. Didn't catch me. But GG all the while. Alright, so we're back at it again. So, his build basically focuses on the usage of the claw and the notch whip. 2 weapons that you rarely see. Now, when I think of claws, the first 2 people that come to mind is probably Spades and I think Pep, right? Because I know Pep has a build where he uses the claws, and I think the build that good old Spades, shout out to Spades, the build that Spades is currently using, actually I won't say currently, I'll just say the last build that I saw him use was basically a claw / claymore build, and it was a pretty good build because actually he beat the bananas out of me with that build. Right, and I think we only had like 4 or 5 matches, but that guy's like way too high speed for me. I mean, it was so fast I couldn't even catch up with everything that was going on. So GG to Spades for that other day. And as a matter of fact, speaking of Spades, for all you guys that are not familiar, there's a guy named SFC Spades RPG. Go ahead and check out his channel. As a matter of fact, I'll even put a link to it in the description box. He's a cool guy. He's on Xbox. He's one of the top tiered players on Xbox. Go ahead and check out his material. Now, at this point, he doesn't have any commentary, but perhaps sometime in the future he will. So if you guys want to see some fancy dancy moves, go ahead and visit his channel. If you want to fight him, go ahead and visit some of the Twitch streams. And as a matter of fact, he is a streamer himself. He just got either a PVR or some other type of recording device on this Christmas. Alright, so more than likely you can catch him up then. Alright, so ImDaNuca is back with his claw / notched whip build. And he's going to go ahead and buff it up. Now, the vast majority of the time whenever I do Battle of the Builds, the rules are basically, you know, no Hornet, no Pinwheel Mask. Pretty much everything else is allowed. Now, as a rule, I don't really like buffs, but as long as I know in advance, I'm kind of good with buffs because then I'll know how to prepare for it. So this is what we got going on right now. He told me ahead of time. He's like, look, dude, I'm going to be using the sunlight blade, but it's going to be on the notch whip and claws. So when I thought about it, I said, you know what? I think I can handle that. Right? So we went on ahead, made an arrangement, scheduled it, and here we go. And actually, I think he's going to put forth a pretty good performance. Now, let's just kind of talk about strengths and weaknesses. Up to this point, I don't really know any strengths or weaknesses other than the individual player's dedication to this build. Now, what do I mean by dedication? Number one, the claw is not an easy weapon to use, in my personal opinion. I think I tried it maybe once, and actually the one time that actually, let me take that back. I tried the claw twice. Once in this video, and there's another time where I kind of experimented with a claw in a Force video that I have. I can't even remember the name of the video, but I know it was a Force video that I have in the past that I was fighting against Bushido. And in one of the matches, and it wasn't the Battle of the Uploaders, it's a video like way before that. And in one of the matches, I went on ahead and called myself experimenting with it. And you know what? I just did not like it at all. So, you know, that's one of those weapons you definitely will have to experiment with. Because, you know, the moveset to that weapon, I don't know. It can be so confusing that, you know, if you don't have enough practice with it, you might be in trouble. But, you know, that's kind of one of the things that make this build so interesting to me. And that's why I felt like it was good enough to be in the Battle of the Build series. Alright, so what do we have going on? Well, a little server action. Alright, so let's see, we're back at it again. Go ahead and buff it up. And we're good. Now, with regard to the claws, from what I have seen up to this point, I don't know if there's like some iframes in this roll, right? Because if you notice, there's like a roll forward, then there's a mini roll, and then there's a claw thrust, right? And then right after you thrust with the claw, there's like a mini roll going backwards, kind of like a retreat. So I don't know if that little short roll in the middle, I don't know if it has iframes, but I know there was a couple times where I engaged, and on my screen it looked like he should have been hit in the middle of the roll, but he actually took no damage. So I'm thinking, you know, perhaps that little roll may have some kind of invincibility frame somewhere in there. So if that's the case, I mean, that might be an incentive for someone to use it. Now, with regard to the notch whip, and actually here's my little brief experimentation with the claw. And actually, you know, I don't know what I was doing when I tried this, because I had like zero experience with the claw. That is definitely one weapon that I have not used. I mean, talk about unique builds. This is definitely one. Now, I have watched enough people with the claw use it, you know, and it seems cool. I just really don't see myself being able to use it. Well, actually, let me take that back. I won't say I don't really see myself being able to use it. I'll just say, at least up to this point, I haven't dedicated sufficient enough time to be able to do anything with it. I'll just put it that way. At least up to this point. But, you know, you never know. Maybe one of these times in the future, after noticing some of these good performances, I might be motivated to do something. Right? Because as a matter of fact, speaking of Spades, like I said before, I was just fighting against Spades the other day, and he worked me so well with those claws and the claymore. And actually, it wasn't just claw and claymore. He was kind of on this faith claw claymore thing where, you know, he's kind of spinning around with the Wrath of Gods and the emit force and with the claws and kind of running at you with the claymore. I mean, it was so much stuff going on at one time. I mean, I was just like totally lost. Right? So shout out to all the pro players out there. I mean, that guy was moving so fast I couldn't even keep up. And I mean, in addition to it, and it wasn't necessarily that I was lost by the tactics, but he was going around so fast with that Darkwood Grain Ring, I couldn't even keep up. Right? I just couldn't even keep up. Alright, so the Claw, Darkwood Grain Ring, I mean, Wrath of the Gods, Emit Force, and the Claymore, that was definitely a deadly combination. Alright, now, I really have to be careful because even though it is only a notch whip and only the claw, I really have to be careful because keep in mind, he has a buff. Right? So even though the weapons by themselves are kind of weak, you know, the fact that he has a buff really makes it to be potentially dangerous weapons. Right, because I mean, I don't really know how much damage he was hitting me for on his end. Only he knows. And actually, I probably should have asked him that question. But you know, in some of the times when he was hitting me with that notch whip, you know, I was kind of looking like, holy crap. I mean, is that like 500 damage? I'm not really sure because my builds only have 1700 vitality. Right, and I know there was a few matches where not only did he beat me, but I mean, he was really inflicting a lot of good damage. Alright, so basically, as far as what I can see, the pros and the cons kind of go hand in hand. In other words, the pros are good insofar as you have dedicated enough time. At the same time, you know, there are a lot of cons, you know, if you did not, like I said before, if you didn't, in other words, if you dedicate time to messing around with the build, it has a lot of potential. If you do not dedicate a lot of time, you might be in trouble, mainly because, like I said before, only from personal experience, the claws are kind of hard to deal with, and that's just me. And, you know, in all fairness, I only messed with it twice, like 2 specific occasions. So I don't really know if that's a fair enough dedication to messing with it to be able to say that it's difficult to wield. I'll just say, you know, my lack of experience with it kind of disqualifies me from basically saying anything about it. I'll just say that. Right? But, you know, I have definitely seen, I'll say probably about 3 good people with the claw. So I know the potential was out there. Now, me in particular, I'm not doing anything fancy. This is just my regular dexterity build. You guys have seen this build on a number of occasions. I've used this build in a battle of the builds. Well, actually, and a lot of my recent Force videos on Xbox. And actually, this is PS3, right? This is PS3, this particular video. ImDaNuca's on PS3, not on Xbox. But you guys have basically seen the same build on Xbox. A lot of my recent Force videos, same build. The only difference is my build on Xbox has 27 strength, whereas this one has 28. That's the only difference. And actually, let me take that back. Another difference is this build is a level 130, where it has a few additional points in endurance, and the build on the Xbox is a 126, and I think it stops at like 59 endurance. So I think this build on PS3 has 62 endurance, and the one on Xbox only has 59. So I mean, there's a difference in a few levels, but only in endurance for the most part, in 1 point and strength. Alright, so if you guys notice, he's kind of tricking me up with those rolls. Right? Now, my build, I can't really say if there's any pros or cons, because basically it's just a dex build. Nothing really fancy about it. You know, nothing in particular. It's just a build that focuses on using dexterity weapons. So, you know, those dexterity weapons are not limited to, you know, the katana or anything like that. It's just kind of like whatever weapons that I choose to use, those are the ones that I would be able to use. Anywhere from the Murakumo to the, and actually, this could be considered a quality build. You know, I know some of the hot shots will tell you that a quality build has like, you know, 27 or 28 in strength and 40 in dexterity. Okay, that could be when you two-hand a weapon. But see, the reason why I call it a dex, and actually I'll just say dex slash quality. And here's why I'll say that. The Murakumo and servers are dexterity weapons, right? They may be large curved swords, but the Murakumo is classified as a dexterity weapon. In order to one-hand the Murakumo, you need 28 in strength, right? So my dexterity build enables me to one-hand all of the dexterity weapons. So that's why I have 28 in strength and 40 in dexterity. I know some of these guys may use that, you know, either 27 or 28 strength along with 40 in dexterity as a quality build. But I call it a dex because I focus on dex weapons. Now, will I use a claymore every now and then? Yeah, I do. But for the most part, it concentrates on dex weapons. Right, so, you know, some guys will call it a dex weapon. I mean, a dex build. Well, I call it a dex build. Some guys will call it a quality build. Doesn't really matter. The stats are there. I mean, really nothing fancy about it. Now, the pros and cons to my build. There's all kind of pros. And basically, your potential for using this build is basically based on you. One thing about me, I basically dedicated a lot of time to a lot of weapons, right? So that's great swords, short swords, halberds. I think the only class of weapons I haven't really messed around with is whips. But everything else, for the most part, I have dedicated time to. So basically, you know, with regard to how I play the build, insofar as I have given dedication and practice to a lot of the weapons, I can kind of maximize the potential for using my build. Now, so that's basically strengths. Strengths just basically depend on the time that I dedicate to using the myriad of weapons within the class of dexterity weapons. Now, with regard to weaknesses, the only weakness I guess I have is the fact that, you know, I don't have any castings. I know a lot of guys, when they use their dex builds, they kind of pair it off with pyro or something like that. Me, you know, I can cast, you know, sorceries or faith or pyro, but I don't like to use those castings because, you know, I would rather get proficient on the hand-to-hand combat, you know, sword, shield, armor, maybe a bow, and I'm good to go. So I guess that's the only limitation. Because I know there's a lot of guys out there, they just have to have a casting, right? They have to have a pyro, or they have to have a buff, or they have to have they have to have something. Right, so if you're one of those type of guys, my build is not for you because I'm basically a pure sword shield type of dude. So that's basically it. Pros and cons with regard to my build. Oh, another pro is the fact that I have high enough endurance to be able to use two weapons. Right, two 6-unit weapons. And if I'm going to use a Murakumo, I can pair the Murakumo off with something no heavier than a rapier, because a rapier is like 1.5 units. So that's about it with regard to that. So we have the strengths and weaknesses to my build, and we have everything that I perceive with his build. So I think it's good. so far, especially when he's kind of pairing it off with the buff. Now, I think I really would have been in trouble if he would have incorporated some of the Wrath of Gods, or some of the Force Miracles or something like that. I probably would have been a lot more on edge had he done that. So I'm kind of glad that he didn't up to this point. So, good for me. Definitely good for me. Alright, so I'm going to mix it up a little bit. Bring out the scythe. And actually, before we had this particular series, we had, I don't know, probably about 5 matches, and I was using my little high-speed life hunt build. And he was basically demolishing me, right? But that was that build where it basically has super low defense. And he was basically like, dude, I mean, how much defense do you have? Right? And he was the one of the first few people who basically let me know that that build was in trouble, mainly due to the low defense. Right? But I went on ahead and pulled out Martyrs von Steuben, and we're back to business. Alright. So if you guys notice, he's got a lot of those engage and retreat kind of techniques that comes with the claw. That's a part of the attack set, right? Because you initiate the roll, and then you kind of do a secondary kind of roll thingy, and then you go from there. Alright, GG. GG. Alright, so I went on ahead and pulled out my high-speed Flamberg. If you guys notice, I've kind of been changing up my playstyle. Alright, so I had to get up out of there because I knew he was going to go ahead and attempt that parry, because I was getting a little too obvious on my engagements. And actually, speak of the devil, he got me with one. Got me with the parry for the win. Alright, and I guess he jumps for joy. Good to go. Alright, so we're back at it. And instead of firing it up with the Sunlight Blade, looks like he has the fire buff, right? The good old charcoal resin. Alright, so I was able to hit him with one of those unlocked two-handed R1 thrusts, and I got another one right there for 600 damage. Sometimes I miss those hits, but like I said before, and see, actually right there I thought I should have hit, but see, like I said before, I'm basically new to this unlock playing, so I'm still kind of trying to get the science down packed. But hey, you just give me a few weeks and I guarantee I'll be good to go. I just need a few weeks and I'll be good. Alright. Oh, I thought he was getting ready. Actually, I got him. I was able to get him on that one. So we're good. Well, alright guys, this is basically the last match of the series. I'd like to thank good old ImDaNuca for his performance of this build. And like I said before, he didn't really give me a name to the build, so unfortunately I don't have a title to give it. So, I mean, either I'll think up one, or hopefully before the time that I upload it, he'll think up something. But until then, thanks for watching. Martyrs Brigade is